So I want to end the agenda portion before we get into our Christmas spirits about what do we do now? How do we move forward? What are some thoughts about taking what we have in our hands and turning it into something that's productive? So moving forward, here are some of my thoughts. First, we have a very specific task ahead of us. We have an opportunity to choose some new party leadership next year. In March of 2025, we will have our county convention in which we will elect our officers for the next 2 years, chair, first, second, and third vice chairs, as well as executive committee man, committee woman, and alternates, and state convention delegates. I've already announced both in email and at the Carnell Drummond Mays banquet, I am not seeking re-election as chair. I've been it for 5 years, and a party cannot get stuck with one leader. Just can't. There needs to be turnover. So I could be doing, maybe in some people's minds, a great job. Doesn't matter. I could be doing a terrible job. Doesn't matter. We need some new voices, some new leadership. We need to build that bench, right? We need to get people that experience, because who knows who may be running for office in the future. So consider it. We have a choice to make. We have opportunities for new leadership. I can't speak about first, second, third vices. It's all open. So we're not handpicking our successors. We're not encouraging anybody independently off to the side. Hey, Ken, why don't you run? Well, you can't because you're in Abbeville anyway. But, hey, Ken, run. We're not doing any of that. This is truly open to party members. Then in either May or June, the date hasn't been set yet, the South Carolina Democratic Party has a convention, and those leadership positions, Crystal Spain on the way down, are also up for challenges and for re-election or new leaders. So we have important choices to make next year that will dictate the pace of what happens and carries us into 2026, which is the next election, right? So I'm already looking at the next election. There's another one coming, and I feel like we're already behind the 8 ball. We got to get started. We also need to educate, engage, and motivate. Oh, I love it when Reverend Edwards looks up and sees her face on the screen. And while I congratulate her, and I think the ward is going to be served wonderfully by your representation, I can't think of a better candidate. You're amazing, and God bless you. God bless Ward 3. All right. So I want to make sure I get this on the record. December 16th, 5 o'clock over at City Hall. Reverend Edwards will be sworn in. All right. I want to be there. Let's show up in force to support one of our own. So congrats. I did pull this article up here on the screen, and I highlighted a section. I know many of you can't see it, so let me read it. Only 94 of the 1,090-something registered voters showed up to vote. 5%. 5% of that ward showed up. Now, a couple of mitigating factors. That was the runoff election. That was 2 weeks after the general election. But even then, it was promoted. I know we as a party, we sent out several hundred text messages the night before. I don't think you even know this. Or maybe I think you even received a text. Just as a reminder that there was a runoff election. We didn't endorse a candidate, but we tried to encourage participation in the vote. And even then, only 90-some out of 1,700 showed up to vote for their representative. There are pockets in our community that are disengaged, not educated, and unmotivated. And I don't mean uneducated as in they're dumb. I'm saying they just don't know what council people do, what representatives do, what their vote does. And we need to break that cycle. And that showed very highly in this election. So that's looking forward, 3 things that we need to do. We need to communicate. So I'm going to do a little personal plug. Some candidates go underground. Other candidates climb up on a soapbox or up on a tower and start hollering, and I'm of that latter variety. All right, so my plan is not to go quiet, but to be even louder and more annoying, which is my personal strength. One thing that I've learned from the 2020 election, when Joe Biden won and Donald Trump lost, did Donald Trump and his minions go quiet? From day one, they were a pain in the ass to the current administration, constantly chipping in everybody's ears what a terrible job he's doing, passing out misinformation, falsehoods, just unfair accusations, and it was incessant, and it was nonstop. His campaigning began January 21st, the day after the inauguration. So I want to learn from that lesson, and I plan to be that annoying voice, and have been. So there is a website there that I've listed, a QR code. I've rebranded all of my campaign accounts and called myself Political Bill SC. And I am there watching every hearing, watching every committee meeting. I am making comments. I'm educating people. I am doing direct attacks. I would encourage you to follow me if you want to stay on top of what's happening in Colombia. But I plan on living out that mantra that says everything that happens from now on are Republicans' fault. Everything. And so I'm going to be pointing it out everywhere I can and joining a network of people across the state who are doing likewise. Lane.
I just want to say I've been following it and it's awesome. So you don't need to.
Oh, I've got a vote from Lane. And Lane, I will be having a paid option. If you could join my Patreon account and become a subscriber. No, I'm kidding.
Is that your dog?
That is my dog, Ace. It's not my wife. That is my dog, Ace. Didn't know if you were confused. So I hope to be part of the online army that amplifies this. That barcode will take you to a site where you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, YouTube. I'm on them all except Twitter.
That's right.
I canceled my Twitter account. We are completely off of Twitter. We are not participating in that Musk cesspool. No, sir. No, ma'am. We also need to, starting in January, as a party, truly focus on a precinct-by-precinct approach. We need to get more microcosms. We have about 5 precinct leaders left, and we haven't even really asked them to do anything in their precinct. Some have gone ahead and done stuff for the precinct anyway, and we need to learn from that. And we need to truly make every precinct feel valuable, be educated, be involved. You never know where your next party leaders or your next candidates are going to come from. So we need a true precinct-by-precinct approach. We also need participation. So to echo what Dr. Brooks said, we need every seat challenged. Show of hands. Who knows this face? Who's heard of this guy? A handful of people have. This is Representative R.J. May from Lexington. Anybody know what he's famous for? He is under federal investigation for child exploitation. He had his house raided and electronics taken, disk drives, computers, 20 USB drives. Who has 20 USB drives? I'm a tech guy. I've got 2 or 3 laying around. I don't got no 20. But you know what child exploitation means? He is under investigation with charges coming shortly. He was reelected as a Republican House representative in Lexington in November, after all those reports and allegations. You know, one of the main reasons was he was unopposed. There was no Democrat on the ballot. I'm talking with a young lady. She's in her 20s. She lives on the other side of the state. She had reached out on social media because she just felt after this election that she wants to run for office. She says, I'm hearing this voice in my head. I want to run for office. I need to understand why I should do so. So we've been communicating, and I gave her 3 reasons to run for office. 1, it gives you a voice as a candidate that you otherwise wouldn't have. So being a candidate means you get access to the newspapers and radio stations. You get to fundraise. You get to put your message out. Number 2 is that there are people in your district that look for representation, that even if you don't win, they love it that they can show up and vote for somebody they know and trust. How many of you felt that way at the ballot box? You had some names on there that you knew and trusted and voted for. Nothing more depressing than going up and only having one name that you don't like, and that's it. Then the 3rd reason was you never know when lightning can strike. So even when the odds are against you, the opponent may suffer a heart attack, may have to drop out due to other reasons, may get charged with child exploitation. Imagine if there was a Democrat, a halfway decent Democrat who had signed up to run when that news came out in June. If that was me, that would be my only campaign point. I would be sending out mailers daily with him and children on the same mailer saying, do you trust this man? Right? This would have been a winnable seat, maybe. Who knows the thoughts of Republicans, given who they've elected nationwide. But still, you never know when lightning strikes, and you may back your way into an election victory, which has happened. So participation is very important. Finally, or not finally, but we're also going to dig in. Here's what the Republicans have planned for the next 2 years. You're thinking, my God, they've gotten everything they've wanted. What more could they get? Well, school vouchers. That got struck down by the state Supreme Court. They're coming right back. In fact, they're meeting next week. Next week, the state Senate is meeting to say, all right, here's how we're going to approach it round 2. Just like they did with the abortion ban. It was struck down. They just regathered and says, well, we got some new Supreme Court people now, and we're going to try it again. We're going to change the language a little bit. So they're going to go for that a second time. They're going to continue looking for ways to restrict medical care. They're going to look for more book bans. They're going to look to close the primaries, meaning we will have to register as Republican or Democrat, and then only Republicans or Democrats can participate in the primaries. You will not have an option to cross over into another primary. They want that. And then more ways to force religion on people. You want to see the 10 Commandments in every room? You want to see a crucifix in every room? In public schools? Listen, I'm religious too. In fact, I'm about to be ordained an elder of my church in January. All right, thank you. So I have strong beliefs, but I am not in favor of posting those beliefs in public places, because that is a disrespect to our Jewish children, our Muslim children, our non-believing children. We have no right to impose our beliefs in publicly funded areas, and they are looking to do that. So we need to dig in, call it out, fight it. Even if we don't have the votes, we don't have to make it comfortable for them. And then finally, the last point is 2026 is an election, and it has already begun. I want to showcase this lady here I've been in communication with, Sylvia Wright. She is a teacher from the other side of the state who is announcing today, as a matter of fact, because I invited her today to speak, but she said she couldn't make it because she's announcing formally her candidacy for state superintendent of education on the Democratic ticket. So I actually have a short video clip that I'm going to play of her in a minute. But in 2026, look who's up for elections. We have the governor. And it's not going to be McMaster again. He's now aged out. Not aged out, but he can't run. He served his time. Termed out. He should be aged out too, but that's a different story. Superintendent of Education, the worst one we've ever had, in Ellen Weaver. Her time could be up if we have the right challenger. The U.S. Senate, Lindsey Graham. That seat is up for election. I think we've got somebody who's looking to run against him. What's your name, ma'am? You have my nomination right here and now. All state house seats are up again, and Greenwood County Council, including Ms. Griffin back there, she will be up for re-election if she decides to run again. So her and Johanna Bishop's seat would be up for re-election, and so that's up. So we got work to do, and I don't want to wait until September of 2026 to start thinking about it. We're thinking about it now. So if I may, I want to play this video from Sylvia Wright just to introduce her. She doesn't have my endorsement yet. It's still too early, and there may be other candidates, but I certainly do appreciate a candidate who starts this early in the process.
I'm Sylvia Wright. I have proudly dedicated the past 2 decades of my life to the field of education. During these years, I have witnessed a troubling decline in public education here in South Carolina. It's disheartening to see that in so many ways, we're still operating our school systems with a 1990s mindset while striving to educate the 21st century learner. The statistics from the South Carolina Department of Education for the year 2021 are alarming. A staggering 5,754 students dropped out of our public schools. A significant 21% of those dropouts occurred among ninth graders. We must ask ourselves, why are so many students choosing to leave our public schools? Furthermore, we've observed a 31% increase in private school enrollment during the 2022-23 school year. What motivates parents and guardians to make this choice? I believe they are seeking something different, and I can relate to this desire for change. After I became a grandmother, I began exploring private school options. I can't help but to feel that our current education system is robotic and fails to address the unique needs of the 21st century learner. Opting out of public school was not the solution. What about the students who were left behind in the public education system? That's when I decided to take action and run for the position of South Carolina Superintendent of Education. We've reached a crucial moment in education where we must move beyond discussions about improvements and system fixes. Instead, we must unite and work together to bridge the gaps in our educational system. Enhancing public education isn't just about improving the learning experience for our students. It's also about fostering economic growth in South Carolina. Our current system operates with a one-size-fits-all mentality, failing to recognize the distinct needs of rural, urban, and suburban schools. I plan to collaborate with school leaders, board members, and community members to craft a tailored educational plan of action that addresses the specific requirements for each district. It's high time that we rediscover the true essence of public education. I aim to reintroduce joy and enthusiasm in our educational institutions. Let us not abandon public education. Instead, let's work together to create a sustainable educational environment that our children and grandchildren rightfully deserve. Thank you for your time. I invite you to join me on this journey to revitalize and reshape public education in South Carolina. Together, we can make a meaningful and positive difference.